Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's panel session, How to Improve Your Outbound Sales Strategy. My name is Amir Motameni, and I am a community manager here at BrightTALK, and I will be today's moderator. I'm excited to be joined by four of my colleagues today. Before I do introduce our panelists, I just wanted to go over a few quick notes about this presentation and the BrightTALK platform. So today's webinar will be recorded and will be available on demand. It will be accessible through the same URL that you currently are on, and you can also access it through the social icons. Now, if you guys have a question at any point during today's webinar, please submit these questions via the Ask a Question tab, which you can find on the top left-hand corner of the webinar player. We will have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, and so we'll try to address as many questions as possible. And so with further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists for today. First, we have Chris. Chris, how are you doing today?
Good, Amir. Yep, my name's Chris Schaefer. I'm an account executive here at BrightTALK. I've done outbound sales for BrightTALK, and I'm also an account manager here.
Awesome. Welcome, Chris. Next, we have David. David, do you mind introducing yourself real quick?
Hi, everyone. I'm David. I'm an outbound SDR, and I provide opportunities for the account executives here at BrightTALK.
Thanks. Next, we have Ron.
Thanks, Amir. My name is Ron Parshad, and I'm the Director of Global Sales Development at BrightTALK.
Great. And then last but not least, we have Jordan Mifflin.
Hey, everyone. This is Jordan. I'm the Enterprise Sales Development Lead here at BrightTALK.
All right. Thanks, guys. Before we do get started to the questions, so just wanted to talk a little bit about today's topic and why it's important. In B2B sales, there are very few companies that rely purely on inbound lead generation. So when inbound isn't typically generating enough leads or the right kind of leads for the sales team, this is when an outbound strategy makes the most sense. And so even though most companies rely heavily on inbound campaigns, a lot of companies are now adopting a mix where they're doing inbound and outbound strategy. So Ron, first question's for you. So why do you think more companies are moving towards that outbound strategy, and more specifically to an account-based sales strategy as well?
Thanks, Amir. That's a good question. But I think it starts, look, if inbound is working well and you have enough leads to go and build your pipeline, that's great. I just invest more in that. But what we've seen is that you need a really good mix of both inbound and outbound to help target your potential customers. What we've seen also in the past few years, or decade or so, is that we're collecting a lot of data both on our prospects, leads, contacts, and customers, and through that data, we're able to figure out who are our best customers, right? So based off that criteria and what that demographic looks like, we can essentially go out and build lists based off our ideal customer profile and figure out what the total addressable market is, and that can be your target list to go out and do outbound. So leveraging your wins and why your initial customers bought from you to these prospects will help you target them and have them in your pipeline.
Awesome. Chris, same question for you. So why do you think more companies are moving towards an ABS strategy?
I mean, I think that there's a couple of reasons for it. I think Ron brought up, a lot of good ones. I think a lot of it is that, the quote unquote like boots on the ground, the salespeople and the SDRs are the first to get that market feedback. And, the SDRs in particular are talking to, many prospects a day. And they sort of get a sixth sense for which prospects are good prospects and which prospects aren't. And sometimes they get that sense, not in like a sort of quantifiable data sort of way, but more in a qualitative, instinctual kind of way. And being able to leverage the human element of your salespeople to target better accounts and pivot very quickly when necessary, I think is really powerful. It makes things very efficient. So I think that's part of the reason why you're seeing account-based sales and outbound sales, continue to be a requisite in the B2B sales marketplace, and we're even seeing marketing try to emulate that with what we call ABM strategy these days as well.
Right. Thanks, Chris. To stick with the topic of account-based sales, so here at BrightTALK not too long ago, we kind of shifted from just an inbound strategy to an inbound and outbound team. And Jordan is actually one of our enterprise SDRs. So Jordan, I was just curious to hear what's the day in the life of an outbound SDR like? What are some of the different tactics and strategies that you've been able to develop and implement?
Yeah, great question, Amir. Besides the usual calls and emails that are this stereotypical image of an outbound rep, smiling and dialing, it's important to give yourself time to learn more about the industry and the potential prospect that you're selling into. And for your key target companies, you want to be familiar with the content they're putting out, especially how it's relevant to what you're selling. So to give yourself triggers to have an actual reason to reach out and speak to what they're currently putting out in the market. And for your prospect, you want to know what they're talking about and sharing online, so you can first approach them with an authentic conversation that can potentially lead to a sales conversation. And it's not about tricking them into buying. It's about creating a dialogue where you first provide value and then ask for the opportunity to sell. There's a Gary Vaynerchuk quote that I love, which is, if you're giving more than you're taking, you get leverage for life. So I try to spend an hour or two each day, building up those triggers and the repository of content, so that when a demand gen marketer might be putting out about their current lead gen capabilities, I have a third-party guide to share with them.
Great, thanks for that. David, so same question for you. I know you're relatively new to BrightTALK, but so what's the day in the life of an SDR for you? Tell me about your strategy and tactics that you use on a daily basis.
Yeah, so I agree with Jordan, everything, and just to add on to that, what makes a successful outbound SDR is you have to be organized and you have to have an agenda for each day, because there's, for example, like I heavily follow a marketer's Twitter's account or their LinkedIn and see what they're posting, and a lot of it has to do with personalization, not just what they're trying to sell or what their market is, but also about who they are as a person, what they like, and really try to connect with them not only at a business level but also at a personal level. So you have to manage each account and strategize your time effectively in order to get the best amount.
Awesome, thanks, David. So we all know that sales development teams have become a vital part of a B2B sales organization. And so sales development here at BrightTALK is obviously very important, especially with our customer acquisition strategy. So Ron, besides the conventional metrics of how many dials an SDR has done for that day, as well as emails sent, what are some of the main metrics that you track, and how do you use that data to help improve the team's performance?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that the answers from both Jordan and David really teed it up on how we really like to take a hyper-personalization approach and just going to where our prospects are, right? And we sell to marketers. They're going to be on Twitter. They're going to be on LinkedIn. They're putting a lot of information out there to attract their own customers or their own leads, and we want to leverage that for our own prospecting, right? So we can be a trusted advisor and really value what they're putting out there as well. So I always go by the belief that if it matters, it measures. So I like to measure everything that goes, all the activities that happens with the sales development team. Aside from the calls, connects, emails, meetings set, and meetings accepted and pipeline and all that stuff, we try to follow a specific sort of personalized email method that I learned from Jaco Vanderkuji from Winning by Design. It's essentially the RRR method, which is Research Reference Request. That's very similar to your AIDA or Why You, Why Now, created by other sales mentors out there. So we're tracking those on a specific metric. We're also tracking Twitter likes, follows, mentions, things like that, as well as LinkedIn in-mails and things along those lines. Also, we're tracking a lot of offline events, right? Offline attempts, right? So there's things like handwritten notes that are being sent out. We're going to meetups. We're going to events. We're trying to do things to meet people for coffee. So everything matters as far as like when you go out and try to reach a prospect. So we try to take a holistic approach about that and measure everything that might influence us getting a meeting and progressing the sales cycle.
Awesome, thanks, Ron. And speaking of those like social touches and interactions that you guys are having, social selling is obviously a big trend. It's been a trend for the last 3 or 4 years. So a lot of the SDRs here at BrightTALK are leveraging different social mediums and tools, and they're doing obviously their due diligence and research, trying to find out as much information about a prospect before they actually reach out to that prospect. So with that in mind, Jordan, can you tell me about a time that you used the non-traditional approach to connect with a prospect?
Yeah, of course, Amir. So like I touched on earlier, it's about creating an authentic conversation with your prospect or lead. And long story short, I was prospecting an IT security company and found one of the marketers on Twitter. He was talking about a hip-hop group called the Tribe Called Quest. One of their members had recently passed away, and this was an extremely influential hip-hop group. I'm a huge hip-hop fan, so I had a lot of experience and have listened to the music growing up. And we just started tweeting about it online, and then he DMs me, and we're sharing our favorite songs, talking about their documentary, just sharing content about this group, nothing related to our industries or what either of us sell. And I had the idea to send him a vinyl from the group, what he said was his favorite record of theirs. And once he got it, he was completely blown away. He gave us a shout out on Twitter, both me personally and the company. And, that's the best kind of word of mouth marketing you could ever get. And then 2 weeks later, when he was discussing his upcoming marketing event, I, reached out to him and approached him with how BrightTALK might be able to help their event. And he instantly was receptive to my, pitch and value proposition, just because we had already had such an authentic dialogue.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with Jordan. I see a lot of sales emails, just when I first started as an SDR at Codility and now at BrightTALK, that it's all very business driven. And kind of going back to my old sales background, I used to work at Equity Schaefer. We used to do very relationship-based selling. And the biggest takeaway for me, like in any type of sales, is that you have to build rapport with the person and build their trust and know who they are as a person in order to even get their trust or earn their time to even talk about your product. So I definitely switched in my last few, at least in the last 100 emails, doing all hundreds of personalized emails. It took a lot of time and effort, but on my return on my investment, not only will I get to yes, I'll take the meeting, but I also got compliments on how much effort I put in, how I took the time to earn their trust, and on top of that, when that meeting took place with the sales executive, at least 90% of them turned into a deal, and it got turned into closed business.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you guys more. Personalization is like a big important thing when it comes to sales or even marketing. So like Chris mentioned earlier, being able to humanize that conversation, Jordan, is obviously like you're going above and beyond. You're thinking of a new strategic approach to kind of unguard this person before you're actually pitching to them. So that's an awesome story. And then David, again, personalization is obviously key. It might take more time to create those emails, but I feel like people are definitely going to be more receptive when you take the time to personalize that information. And I think it's a great thing you guys are doing.
And just real quick, you have to think about the prospect in the enterprise space. They're getting hit up by hundreds, if not thousands of people per week.
Right.
Just the canned spam kind of emails. So just taking the 5 to 10 minutes to make it personal goes like leagues above what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, that must be important for you too as well, because enterprise companies aren't really looking for solutions, right? They're so big. It's the companies like us that we're trying to persuade these people to buy our products. So I'm sure that's really key for your interactions when you're prospecting into those enterprise accounts. To stay on topic with personalization, the next question's for Ron and Chris. We'll start off with Ron. So Ron, tell me about the importance of content personalization for sales. How important do you think it is to align sales material and content with the buyer's journey? And how do you think that helps move the needle?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when it comes to the buyer's journey, right, they're going through awareness, then education and decision. As an SDR, you're really in the initial phases of the awareness, some bits of the education, but as an outbound SDR, you're basically your own marketing engine going there to kind of create that top of funnel demand. How you can leverage marketing, though, is by using the content that they've created across those different sales stages. So things that we like to use, of course, are white papers, case studies, guides, etc. But most importantly, webinars. We feel that people that will watch a webinar will actually engage with us and come back as a much more qualified lead, because they get a chance to see the white paper, see the case study in live action in rich media, which is much more engaging than reading a document that somebody might download and then never read again. So we're leveraging that across all different touches. the first touch might be a high-level piece on exactly what BrightTALK does or can help them, and as we go through the sequential touches, we'll get much more targeted on the results that they might achieve.
Awesome. And so, yeah, Ron alluded to like the top of the sales funnel. So the SDR is usually using content for the awareness and discovery piece. So Chris, how do you use collateral or specific content to push prospects down that funnel? So from the education stage all the way down to the close. So
yeah,
can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, I think it depends a lot on the prospect, right? So during the discovery process, part of what your job as an account executive or as an account manager is to figure out what that customer's needs are. But the other thing you need to assess is, how effective that particular person is at actually doing their job.
Right.
Because there are some clients that I have, for example, where, and as the audience is probably gathering, BrightTALK sells mostly to marketers. So I have some clients where, my main point of contact is like a 45-year-old person that's been doing their job for 25 years, and they're pretty much an expert.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really need me to educate them on how to do their job. They need me to educate them on how BrightTALK can help them get to their goals and KPIs.
Right.
I have other clients who, are younger than I am, and they're kind of new at their job, and BrightTALK is a great tool for them. But more than that, they value the expertise in marketing that my experience brings to the table as their account manager. And so the types of collateral that I'll leverage for each of those two clients differs because the need of that client differs. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. No, yeah. Thanks a lot. All right, so on to the next question. So this one's for David and Jordan. So David, I know that you just started at BrightTALK and you're new. You've been here for a few months and you just joined the SDR team, and specifically the Outbound team, and you work closely with a specific sales executive. So can you tell me what are some of the biggest challenges when it comes to handing off a call to the account executive?
Yeah, so here at BrightTALK, we have a standard definition, what's called an accepted opportunity. But even with that, the same standard, every sales executive is going to have their own opinion on what that means. So one sales executive may want you take it to the point where they only talk about pricing and you did all that hard work and demoing and all that stuff. And to me, that's a bit unrealistic because you might as well call me the account executive. Or another, a reasonable sales executive may say, hey, just get it to a good meeting where they have enough interest to show up and learn more. So, one way to mitigate those challenges is really try to build rapport with your a sales executive and see what they want and what they want to achieve and how you can help them and how they can help you. And once you have a good understanding with each other, then you'll be much more in line to work well together and accomplish more goals.
And following up on that, I think it's important to remember the prospect in all of this. It's all about making a great experience for them and removing any friction when they approach that next meeting. So, you really want to reverse engineer what their perfect call would be. And, you might, if you discovered any pain points in your first call and are setting up for your account executive, you want to make sure that you illustrate that to them, but also share content that might help the prospect learn in the week between calls so that, they're staying educated and your company is staying top of mind. And, it's great if you use both third-party content and content your company is producing just to give a well-rounded approach and solution to the problem you're solving for them.
Awesome, thanks. To follow up to that question, so typically with outbound programs, usually an SDR, depending on the company size, SDRs are usually paired with an account executive or a sales executive. So, Chris, what do you think the advantages are for sales executives to partnering up with SDRs?
Well, I think that there's advantages for both SDRs and sales executives for that. At a medium or small company, it's pretty easy to kind of look at the size of the SDR organization and the size of the sales organization and kind of pair people up. Oftentimes we're all working, out of the same office or offices in similar time zones. And so the collaboration opportunities are pretty expansive, and it means that everybody, the sales executives and the SDRs and even the management team, they get much more rapid access to sort of like real-time information on how things are going. And kind of going back to Jordan's point about personalizing the touches, it means that thread of personalization, which begins at the SDR stage, continues all the way through, acquisition of that client and maintenance of the account. So I think there's a lot of benefits there, to the organization as well as to the client. From a personal growth perspective, that collaboration allows the account executive to get a little bit of a taste of what it's like to manage somebody, which is, helpful as that person wants to, maybe move on to the next step in their career. And for the SDR, it allows them to get a feel for, what it's like to take on more of the responsibilities of doing things like some of the beginnings of discoveries and that sort of thing. I mean, David sort of alluded to sometimes the unrealistic expectation of account executives in terms of how qualified an opportunity becomes before it gets handed over. And I think in some cases it can get a little silly where, you don't want the SDRs to be turning your account executives into order takers. But there's also there's some value in trusting your SDR enough to let them do that discovery and trust that they're going to do a proper job so that they learn how to do it. And when they get that promotion to be in the closing role, the time that they do their first, quote unquote, first discovery, it's not really the first time. It's they've been doing it a little while as an SDR.
Great, thanks, Chris. Ron, do you agree with Chris? How important do you think it is to have an SDR paired with a sales executive?
Yeah, I completely agree, and Chris did a really good job of answering the questions on why it's both fruitful for the account executive and the SDR. I think the mentorship, the collaboration is key, but overall we want the AE and the SDR to treat their territory like their own business, right? So that goes from planning, building the lists out, the contact strategy that goes with it. How are they going to work with marketing, to leverage maybe physical events and, so on and so forth. But also, with that process, the AE and the SDR can really have a 1-2 combo punch on accounts. So if I'm the AE, I'll go to the top and target CEOs, while if I'm the manager, and this is on the SDR, I can go at the manager level or at the associate level, and this is especially effective in enterprise to go and figure out and do some research and mapping, and then go leverage that to go talk to the senior level people. So overall, I think it's what should be done, if you can't afford it, because of the mentorship, the collaboration, and also just the efficiency and the effectiveness that you'll have with that combo.
Great, thanks. Couldn't agree with you guys more. To stay on topic with the SDR and AE relationship, once an SDR sets up a meeting for the account executive, typically their work is considered to be done. But with today's purchasing decisions, usually involving 5 or more people, how do you guys typically expand that relationship in order to get the deal closed? Chris, you want to take that one?
Sure. It's a good question. I think it gets handled differently depending on how your relationship with your SDR is structured, and also how big the account is, right? I mean, if you're talking about a 50-person company, you're probably looking at a team of 2 that are going to be part of the buying decision. You don't really need a lot of air cover in that scenario, right? Like, let's get a meeting with one of those people, and then we'll rope in the second guy if we need to, is kind of the thought there. In Jordan's case, though, where, he's dealing with enterprise companies like EMC, Dell, CA Technologies, those kinds of folks. Those companies buy by committee. Not only do they spend large amounts of money, but no one person wants to attach their name to that spend. So understanding from the get-go, before you even start to attack those accounts, who those buying committees are and, sort of which tables they all sit at, so to speak, And then once a meeting has been established with one of the people at the, in that committee, making sure that you're aware that there's going to be other decision makers that are going to need to be involved in the purchasing decision before anybody signs anything, and actively from the beginning of the sales conversation trying to get those people involved. And that could be, as Ron alluded to earlier, having the SDR go try to tackle a couple of sort of the lower echelons of the org, and having the account executive try to tackle some of the higher echelons, or it might be making sure that the SDR is included on that call and gets introduced to the other decision makers that attend the call, so that follow-up is smoother and quicker. So yeah, like I said, I think it depends on the account a little bit, and the opportunity within that account. Just because there's a big account doesn't mean there's a lot of opportunity there.
Right.
So you have to decide how much specialization of labor you want to put into each account. But generally speaking, I think having the SDR involved in as much of the process as they can be without taking away from their other responsibilities is always a good thing, and getting everybody introduced to as many relevant decision makers as you possibly can certainly can't hurt on the back end, especially as they'll start to stagnate and slow down.
Right, right. And Jordan, so again, Jordan is an enterprise SDR. So kind of like Chris mentioned, that with enterprise, there might be more people that you need to connect with as opposed to a SMB or mid-market company. So from your personal perspective, when you're prospecting into an account, how do you find that ICP? How do you map that ideal customer profile within an enterprise? Like, how many different people are you trying to contact for specific accounts, just in general?
Of course. So it really depends on just the number of different business units that align with what we sell and the problems we solve. And I think of every company as its own account where there's going to be a different target segments that I go after first. So if a large enterprise company has 5 different business units, I'm going to rank those and see which lead more favorably into our value proposition, and then from there leverage those conversations to expand into the other business units. So typically it's at least 10 people in each varying business unit, and I try to get people from every different like managers, directors from every different decision making, so that you can more readily rope in other people to the conversation, so that once you speak with a manager, you can approach a director saying, this is how we understand what your KPIs are for this coming quarter or year. How can we have a conversation soon about this?
Awesome. David, so yeah, similar question. So you're working with mid-market, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So how many people are you typically trying to prospect into? So how many different leads do you have from a specific account that you're trying to reach out to at any given time?
Yeah. So, so I'm a huge fan of account-based selling, and as you know, there's not only one type of marketer. Every marketer is responsible for certain aspects of marketing, whether that's doing a summit or trying to do demand gen or whatnot. So, I look at every marketer and try to see what their personas and what they want to buy. So I reach out to every type of marketer, whether it's a field marketer or demand gen or CMO or VP, and sell to them based on what their job role is. And I'm trying to get everyone involved into that, what BrightTALK does, so this way that they can all come together and make a decision and ultimately choose to invest in BrightTALK. Because like going back what Chris Schaefer was saying, that today no single person is going to put their name to a bill. It's all going to be a team decision, and they're all going to decide on what's going to be best for their company.
Totally agree. Thanks, David. So we're almost wrapping up now. I have one more question that I'm going to ask each of the panelists. So what are some of your favorite sales enablement tools that you guys use on a daily basis and that you can't live without? Let's start off with Chris.
I mean, this is a little bit, I guess, old school, but like my favorite tool right now is still the telephone. It seems to have fallen out of favor because so many of our prospects just don't even look at their telephone during the day anymore. But one thing that it does do is it proves that you're a human, right? I mean, if you're calling people and leaving a voicemail and then you're following up with an email that they do see, at least they know that email wasn't completely automated because you took the time to dial the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, once you are working within an account and you know a piece of the buying group there, the telephone is the most efficient way to meet with those people and exchange ideas with them, which ultimately tend to lead to referrals to other business units within the account. So, I think email is one of those tools that's becoming very overused, which is why you see a lot of people going towards things like Twitter and that sort of thing. But I think that the telephone is sort of going to come back in vogue here, just because it's a little bit more personal. And I also enjoy, to the degree that I can and have the time to do it, I enjoy going and meeting with my clients and prospects in person as well, because it allows you to build a working relationship and a rapport that you really just can't get virtually.
So how often do you typically have these meetings outside of the office? I know I always see you dressed very nice in your three-piece suit every once in a while in the office, so we always know that you have some client that's either coming on-site or you're going off-site. So how often do you do off-sites?
Yeah. Probably, once a week or so. I try to schedule them so that I have like one day where I do multiple of them, because it can get time consuming,
Sure.
So if you have that one every single day of the week, you're gonna spend the majority of your week just on those 5 meetings. So I think that from a time management standpoint, it's better to try to, put 2 or 3 of them in a single day and then have that be your whole week of on-site meetings.
Right.
And then spend the rest of your time, sort of virtually. But yeah, I would say, on average, 1 to 2 a week is a good number, depending on how many accounts you're working with and the cadence of business you do. If you're in a very, very low average deal size kind of scenario and your transactions are just that, very transactional, then you're not going to have the time to spend face-to-face time with all those clients and prospects.
Right, it depends on the sales cycle, right?
Yeah, exactly. If you're in a larger deal size, lower volume kind of scenario where it's more relationship-based, then it's imperative that you get out and see those people.
Right. Yeah, you definitely got to build up the rapport, especially if it's going to be anywhere from like a 3-month sales cycle all the way to a year. So obviously it's better to develop that relationship in person. So cool. Thanks. Jordan, so what are some of your favorite sales enablement tools that you use on a daily basis?
Yeah, I come with a math background, so any data or automation tool that where I can like batch deal flow and things like that. So Chris mentioned the telephone. Right now, I really like New Voice Media and the automation and analysis. It allows our team to dive into the different stages of the deal. And for prospect data, just Datanyze and a free tool called Connect that can kind of fill in the gaps that Datanyze has. And then I think my funnest tool is just Twitter, just to actually like see what people are interacting with in real time and see the conversations they're having.
Awesome. So yeah, David, what are some of your favorite sales tools that you use on a daily basis?
Yeah, as corny as it may sound, it's actually my team members, because you look at ToutApp and New Voice Media and whatnot. They're great tools, but in reality, all they do is just kind of speed up the process. Like if you want to cook a meal, you put it in the microwave and it's going to heat it up really quickly so you can eat it. One thing that you just can't get is the value from your team members. Like for instance, my colleague Jordan, he's very good at writing value-driven emails, whereas I'm very good at writing personalized emails, really trying to find a common ground and connect with them on a personal level. So, if you're able to leverage your team members' strength and learn from each other, I think that's going to ultimately make you into a better salesperson and also a better team that's going to ultimately help the business close more deals.
Awesome, thanks. Last but not least, Ron. So what are some of the tools you can't live without to help you be more productive?
I think the team did a good job of saying what they like to use. I think David's comment on collaboration. We like to create something I like to call like a self-learning organization, right? So I'm obviously not going to be on the floor every second of the day. So what I like to do is with our constant trainings, have the team collaborate and share good ideas, right? We want to celebrate our wins at the end of the day because it is a tough job. But for me, what I'm trying to do is to find other areas where we can go and have some penetrate new accounts. So tools like Datanize, Data Fox is also something that I really like as well, and doing some growth hacking on Twitter and trying to find intent signals that we can leverage for our own outreach. So along with the traditional, Salesforce, Marketo, Datanize, New Voice Media, Tout App, etc. Sales Navigator, of course, is a really big one. We're trying to do things kind of a little bit differently so that we can reach our marketers.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Now we're on to the Q&A. So let me check to see if we have any questions submitted from the audience. All right, looks like I got a question. It could be for David, I guess Chris or Jordan as well. But so someone asked, how do you stay motivated? How do you cope with a low performance month? How do you guys deal with rejection? And how do you get out of that funk and try to stay positive when you're not having a good month or quarter?
Yeah.
Vacation.
Yeah.
So I like to start with that. You got to really think about the why you're doing this job, and what's really taking you to, why you want to be here. Like, if it's just to pay your bills and just put food on the table, then you can really do any job, and you're just really here just to collect a paycheck. For me, it's it's just the love to be able to convince someone and persuade them. Just that power that you have, the techniques and tactics to improve your self-confidence and also help someone else better their lives. And also just the fun and the hunt and just closing business is really what's helping me stay in this role.
Chris, you want to take a stab at that as well?
Sure. I think whoever wrote the question in, they used an interesting word. They used the word rejection, and I think that rejection is a very personal term, right? It's important that as a salesperson, you just understand you're going to hear no way more often than you hear yes. Full stop.
Right.
What you need to know about that is that that's not a rejection. That's a refusal of service right now. There's a big difference between me saying, hey, do you want this thing? And somebody saying, no, thank you. Than me asking a girl to go on a date and her saying no and rejecting me, right? Those are two very different scenarios. And so we need to make sure we don't take that personal rejection feeling into our work, because it will burn you out fast if you bring that to the office with you. On that same vein, making sure that you're working with a team that you enjoy working with, and when somebody is a little rough on you on the phone, you can hang up the phone and have a laugh about it with the guy sitting next to you. Super important. There's a certain amount of team rapport that you win together and you celebrate the victories, and when you get your ass handed to you, you sit around and you drink beers and you talk about it, and it becomes one of those stories you laugh about later, right? That's got to be in the mix. Otherwise, you get burned out quickly, and it's hard to stay motivated.
Right, totally agree. And a no today doesn't mean it's going to be a no in the future, right? Mm-hmm. And I guess that I could apply with a relationship too, I guess. So Jordan, what's your take on how to stay positive when you're not having a good month?
What's a low performance month? No, I'm just kidding. So I think, like Chris touched on, it's really just to reconnect with your team and see what's working for them. It's a great time to revisit your pitch. If you don't, for SDRs, if we don't set any meetings in a week, then you go to whoever's finding success and see what tactics are working for them, what messaging is currently working, and connecting with prospects, and then you integrate that into your workflow, and typically you always find success because sales is all about timing, and for whatever reason, your colleague's able to, thread that needle. So, by using the same messaging, you're able to strike when the iron's hot.
Great. I see a few more questions that are coming in. Someone mentioned that they're using when they're referencing their favorite sales enablement tools, someone mentioned the word connect. Can you expand on that product? Who was it, Jordan or David?
Yeah, it was me. It's a free tool. If you want to go ahead and send me an email, I can send you the follow-up information on that. I can't remember what company actually produces it, but if you want to send me an email, jmifflin@BrightTALK, I'll send you a link to download it. It's a free extension for Google Chrome.
Cool. Thanks, Jordan. Here's another question. So are there sales tools that work within a Salesforce environment that allow you to assign different priority levels to accounts or sales leads that a sales team member should call? Are you familiar with any tools?
Is that like a lead scoring tool? I mean, so you can use a tool like Marketo, right, to do some traditional lead scoring. There's also a lot of predictive intelligence tools out there as well that will add factors from your ideal customer profile to score these accounts or leads at a higher priority level, basically.
How are you doing that, though, from like a sales perspective? Like you go into the account, into the Salesforce record, how are you applying, I guess, or prioritizing these accounts? Because that's more of just marketing, doing marketing automation and scoring people based off their behavior. You guys do that like within the Salesforce account yourself personally, and have any metrics for lead scoring? Like, how do you prioritize specific leads?
Well, the way that we, in the outbound world, right, we're working off target account lists,
Right.
So that's how we're prioritizing what we're going to be going after. But like I said, there's lots of tools out there that you can go and invest on that will essentially have its own column or field within Salesforce that will give you a higher scoring. We've all seen the heat, the fires, the heat, whatever emojis on the Marketo instance, and things like that. So there's lots of tools out there to help you prioritize if you're living in a world where you have so many leads and so many accounts that you need some sort of help for that.
Cool. Yeah, and I see one more question. Oh, were you going to jump in, Chris? Go for it.
I was just going to say, at a previous role, we used to have a 1, 2, 3 field in Salesforce. It was not a free-form field. It was a drop-down, and sales executives would look at their list of leads and prioritize like top, middle, and bottom, and then SDRs could pull reports and use that field as a field to pull, and then they could build lists of prioritized leads to call that they knew were likely to be well converting because it was the sales executive who prioritized it to begin with.
Right.
So that's like a very easy, just have your Salesforce admin just put a field in the lead record or in the account record that you can let the sales executives use to stack rank, how much they like an account, basically.
Right. That could be cool for ICP mapping too, because they could see that most of these people are converting. This is the job title if it's SMB, so then the SDRs can proactively search for people that are within that relevant persona, I guess.
There's a point at which you hit like an inflection point where now you're crossing into a territory where you're manually doing the work that a tool like Visible or Infer could be doing for you.
Right.
So when you get like to the point where you're going much beyond like a simple kind of like 1, 2, 3 or like hot versus not kind of scenario, I think that the personal time of your team could be maybe better spent. But like at a very simple level, I think, something like a 1, 2, 3 score or, a hot or not kind of score is valuable or can be, Once again, it depends on the scale and complexity of the organization as well.
Right. Cool. To stay on topic with lead scoring, I guess predictive intelligence, there's a lot of companies out there and tools where you can crawl the web, so you can kind of get that behavioral data, that intent. Obviously, that's going to be a new big thing with marketing and sales. So someone submitted a question, how important is predictive intelligence? How do you believe that data helps drive more efficiency and efficacy with data? Who wants to take that one?
I can start off. I mean, it goes back to knowing your ideal customer profile, right? You can do this manually, and I've done it several times manually, but if you have the resources and you're sitting on a lot of leads and a lot of accounts that you need some help prioritizing, a tool like EverString, Infer, there's a few out there right now that are Lattice Engine, Mintigo, that will help you out with that, right?
Right.
So it's really up to you and what your total addressable market is, and if you need prioritizing that with the amount of staff that you have. So I think it's a great thing because you don't want to be setting up meetings or spending time on accounts or leads that won't result in being a good customer that has long lifetime value. So it's great to use if you need that effort, but there's also simple ways for you to do it on your own within Salesforce and even Excel.
Awesome. All right, guys. Doesn't look like we have any more questions, so just wanted to thank everybody for joining us today, and I also would love to thank my colleagues and the panelists. If any of you guys have any specific questions for any of us, feel free to reach out to us. You can see our email addresses right here. And yeah, I think we're good to go.
Yep, that was it. And of course, if you have any video, webinar, or demand generation needs, please reach out to me directly, and we can help set you up with a quick intro call and a demo of our product.
All right, thanks, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Isn't typically generating enough leads or the right kind of leads for the sales team. This is when an outbound strategy makes the most sense. And so even though most companies rely heavily on inbound campaigns, a lot of companies are now adopting a mix where they're doing inbound and outbound strategy. So Ron, first question's for you. So why do you think more companies are moving towards that outbound strategy, and more specifically to an account-based sales strategy as well?
Thanks, Amir. That's a good question. But I think it starts, look, if inbound is working well and you have enough leads to go and build your pipeline, that's great. I just invest more in that. But what we've seen is that you need a really good mix of both inbound and outbound to help target your potential customers. What we've seen also in the past few years or, decade or so is that we're collecting a lot of data both on our prospects, leads, contacts, and customers. And through that data, we're able to figure out who are our best customers, right? So based off that criteria and what that demographic looks like, we can essentially go out and build lists based off.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's panel session, How to Improve Your Outbound Sales Strategy. My name is Amir Motameni, and I am a community manager here at BrightTALK, and I will be today's moderator. I'm excited to be joined by 4 of my colleagues today. Before I do introduce our panelists, I just wanted to go over a few quick notes about this presentation and the BrightTALK platform. So today's webinar will be recorded and will be available on demand. It will be accessible through the same URL that you currently are on, and you can also access it through the social icons. Now, if you guys have a question at any point during today's webinar, please submit these questions via the Ask a Question tab, which you can find on the top left-hand corner of the webinar player. We will have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, and so we'll try to address as many questions as possible. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists for today. First, we have Chris. Chris, how are you doing today?
Our ideal customer profile and figure out what the total addressable market is, and that can be your target list to go out and do outbound. So leveraging your wins and why your initial customers bought from you to these prospects will help you target them and have them in your pipeline.
Awesome. Chris, same question for you. So why do you think more companies are moving towards an ABS strategy?
I mean, I think that there's a couple of reasons for it. I think Ron brought up, a lot of good ones. I think a lot of it is that, the quote unquote like boots on the ground, the salespeople and the SDRs are the first to get that market feedback. And, the SDRs in particular are talking to, many prospects a day, and they sort of get a sixth sense for which prospects are good prospects and which prospects aren't. And sometimes they get that sense, Good, Amir. My name's Chris Schaefer. I'm an account executive here at BrightTALK. I've done outbound sales for BrightTALK, and I'm also an account manager here.
Awesome. Welcome, Chris. Next we have David. David, do you mind introducing yourself real quick?
Hi everyone, I'm David. I'm an outbound SDR, and I provide opportunities for the account executives here at BrightTALK.
Thanks. Next we have Ron.
Thanks, Amir. My name is Ron Parshad, and I'm the Director of Global Sales Development at BrightTALK.
Great. And then last but not least, we have Jordan Mifflin.
Hey everyone, this is Jordan. I'm the Enterprise Sales Development Lead here at BrightTALK.
All right, thanks, guys. Before we do get started to the questions, so just wanted to talk a little bit about today's topic and why it's important. In B2B sales, there are very few companies that rely purely on inbound lead generation. So when inbound...
Not in like a sort of quantifiable data sort of way, but more in a qualitative, instinctual kind of way, and being able to leverage the human element of your salespeople to target better accounts and pivot very quickly when necessary, I think is really powerful. It makes things very efficient. So I think that's part of the reason why you're seeing account-based sales and outbound sales, continue to be a requisite in the B2B sales marketplace, and we're even seeing marketing try to emulate that with what we call ABM strategy these days as well.
Right. Thanks, Chris. To stick with the topic of account-based sales, so here at BrightTALK, not too long ago, we kind of shifted from just an inbound strategy to an inbound and outbound team. And Jordan is actually one of our enterprise SDRs. So Jordan, I was just curious to hear what's